So in the last video, we made our brick class. And one thing I forgot to mention, you're going to need this import statement at the top in order for your graphics G object to work. The other thing I'll tell you is that in my constructor, I'm only going to pass in X, Y, so the top left position of our brick, the width and the height, and the color. So I'm not allowing the client to pass in the visible Boolean value. I'm just simply going to set that to true always. So they're not even going to have the option. I'm just setting it to true. As soon as they create a brick, we're going to set it to true. And then, of course, down below in my hit method, that's when we're going to set it to false. Okay, so I am going to go back to the BrickBreaker game. This is kind of like the guts of our program that controls everything. And up at the top, we're going to make a brick, so a brick object called B1. Okay, let's call it brick1. And then inside my constructor, so when I initialize everything, right after I create the ball, I'm going to assign brick1 to a new brick. And now I need the XY position, so I'll just make it 100, 100. Maybe we'll move it over to this, closer to the center. So let's go 200, 100. And then I'm going to make the width of it, let's just try 130, see what that looks like. And I'm going to make this a blue brick. Okay, so I could make another brick. I could make 10 bricks. I could make an array of bricks. But right now we're just going to start slow. I'm just going to make one brick. And here it is. Now, this doesn't actually draw the brick. It just creates it. So the object exists in RAM. The brick object exists. But now we actually want to draw brick. So this is going to be in the paint method. If we go down to the paint method, the only code that I have so far is to draw the walls and the background. And then this code here draws the ball. And so then we're going to have code that draws the brick. All right. And your guess might be, oh, we're just going to say brick1 dot draw G. If you remember, we made a draw method inside the brick class. So this should be allowed. But I'm going to put this in an if statement. And I'm only going to draw the brick if it's visible. So I'm going to tab that over. So if brick1 dot visible is true. Okay, hold on a sec. Will that work? This would only work if you made this instance variable public, but you probably marked it private, and hopefully you made an accessor method called getVisible. Okay, so this is an accessor method inside the brick class that returns either true or false. So hopefully you did that, and then you can say if that's equal to true, or you can remove that because this returns a Boolean anyway. This will either be true or false. So if this statement is true, then we're going to draw the brick. Okay, so I'm just going to attach some curly brackets because we're going to put something else in here later. All right, but let's compile and see if this works. So I'm going to compile. Get visible doesn't work. Okay, so I'm going to check that out. Going to my brick class. Okay, I see. I made the variable, I called it is visible. And even though that's an accessor, sometimes we do that with Boolean methods. Things that return a Boolean, we often put a prefix of is at the beginning. So I'm going to leave that, and I'm going to change it in my BrickBreaker game. So not get visible, I called it is visible. It's really up to you. It's semantics. If you called it get visible, that's fine. All right, so compile, good, no errors. All right, so let's run this thing and see if I can see my brick. Nice, there it is. Okay, so if I click my arrow key or any key, the ball will start moving. And I've set, oh, you'll notice that it kind of grazed the brick. Boom, but it went right underneath it. It went through it. So obviously it's not detecting any collision yet. And then when it hits the ground, it's going to stop. But this is good testing. I can now try to write code that detects a collision between the ball and the brick. And what's really cool about this is once you get that working, then you can easily make a whole bunch of bricks or an array of bricks and just reuse that code. And it should be pretty simple after that. And then all we have to do is draw the paddle at the bottom that moves left and right, and then dress up our game a little bit, and then that's it. We have a nicely working game. Okay, so how do I make this ball collide with the brick and then make the brick disappear? So I'll give you a hint here. I'm back in my BrickBreaker game class, and let's go back down to the paint method. Okay, this is where we just drew the brick. So we're going to draw the brick and check for collision. All right, so again, there are different ways of doing this, but I find that the easiest way to do this is to ask your ball. Remember, what is ball? This is just a variable. This is the name of our ball, and the ball is a new ball with these parameters. Okay, and in the paint method, we're making the ball move. And just as a reminder, the paint method is being called every 20 milliseconds, because that's what the timer does. So this paint method is called very quickly over and over and over again. So always making the ball move, and then it's if brick is visible, then we're going to draw it. But I'm also going to check if the ball collides with brick 1. Okay, interesting. So this is going to crash because it doesn't understand what collides with is. So we need to create this method. And you may have figured out by the way I've written it here, we're going to make this method inside the ball class. So every ball will have a method called collides with, and then the parameter will be a brick object. Okay, so let's close this and go to our ball class. All right, and we're going to add a method. Maybe I'll put it here at the bottom. So this is going to be public void collides with, and it's going to accept a brick object, and I will just call it B. Okay, you can call this whatever you want. Okay, and so I'm going to leave this as an exercise, and this is a challenging task. This should keep you busy for a little while. But basically, you're going to use a series of if statements determining if the ball's coordinates, x, y, remember, we're in the ball class right now, so we have the coordinates x, y, and also keep in mind that represents the top left corner of the ball. So we need to see if that intersects with our brick B. And how do I access B's coordinates? Well, you could just say B dot get X, B dot get Y. That will tell you the top left corner of the brick. You can say B dot get width, B dot get height. That will tell you the width and the height. So you may need to get out a piece of paper and do a little math here and do some test values and ultimately, if you decide that yes, a collision is made, then what you need to do is change the direction of the ball. So remember, we have dx and dy. These are just instance variables of the ball. So if the ball makes a collision on the side So if it hits the left side of the brick or the right side of the brick, then you're going to change dx to negative dx. And then if the ball makes a collision from the top or the bottom, you're going to change dy. So you're not going to change these both at the same time. You're going to have separate if statements. So you need to check up here if the ball collides from the left or the right. And then down here, check if the ball collides with the brick from the top or the bottom. All right, and then if you get this working, and I flip back to the BrickBreaker game, you can see that over and over and over again, we're calling this method, and this method will determine whether we change the direction of the ball, and it will do that if it connects with the brick. So this might take you a little bit of time. I want to challenge you to try and do it. And how do you know if it's working? Well, you just run the program, and you'll know if it hits the bottom, like right there, then it would have bounced the other way. And then if it hits the side, it's gonna bounce off it. You may have to run this a few times. You might even have to change your original parameters of the ball just so that it does hit the brick. You might run this right now and it just passes right by the brick. It doesn't hit it. So you might have to change it so it's forcing to hit the brick. All right, so good luck with that, and we'll see you in the next video.